Welcome to Life Workshop, where we discuss the forgotten basics. As usual, here we are, your most favorite host and co-host, Mo and Bo.
Hello.
So the subject of this podcast is how do you ask a smart question? We talked, I think, in the previous podcast about, asking question, I think, and are there dumb questions? The answer is yes. But again, I made a point that personally, I would say I prefer dumb question than a smart assumption.
Right.
Because when you ask a dumb question, after some time you will understand, how to ask smarter questions. Then I'm going to review one more thing. Now, when you want to ask a question, who do you ask? I said, ask somebody whom you trust. And the trust comes at two levels. That they are the best in the subject. That you trust them, that they have your best interest in mind, and the fact that their best doesn't suck. So sometimes you trust somebody that they really want your best, but if they are not educated or good at something, their opinion and their response doesn't matter. And vice versa is true. If somebody is educated in a field but doesn't have your best interest in mind, can be very dangerous because they can fool you, and actually they have more knowledge about that. Am I making sense there?
Sure. I guess. Depends why you're asking the question in the first place.
Of course, as a generally said, we have lots of questions about lots of things, but who do you ask that from? From somebody, again, I said that you trust. So that is the thing. But again, as I said, trust comes at two levels. It's very important. That's why I'm repeating it. That you trust them, that they have your best interest in mind. And then secondly, that you trust them that their best doesn't suck. Mm-hmm. So these are the two. But if you can find, and if you don't know who that person is, then what would you do? I would suggest, again, ask. Who shall I ask this question from? Because sometimes if you cannot find the right person who qualifies in both section of that trusting, mm-hmm. then who would you ask? Then you would just start asking people that who is the right person to ask this question from. But generally, as I said, I refuse to ask a question from somebody who is not an expert in the field. To have their advice, because their advice can be randomly correct or more randomly wrong, actually. So that is just one of the things. Now, then after this, it comes back to, how do you ask the question? And for example, this is one dumb mistake that personally I made years ago. This is early 2000. We had a computer that computers were very primitive at those days. And then we were sending mass fax. I had a retail outlet. And sometimes we send mass fax. So then the computer couldn't do that those days. So we had bought this a chip that for $800 that we added it to the computer, and we were using that. Then our computer died, and then we removed that chip and we put it on the new computer. Again, used it the same way for mass fax. But then at one point, it didn't work. So I called the technician that we were using for computer things. So when he came, I said, look, we are using this, thing for mass fax, and I believe this chip that we have got, it doesn't work. Can you fix it? So he spent probably around an hour and 15 minutes. And then he said, unfortunately, I can't fix it. You may have to buy another one. And it was like $700-800 a few years prior that I had bought that thing. Then I changed my question. I said, what, the idea is we want to send mass fax. Does this computer do that? He said, let me check. Honestly, it did not take him more than 2 to 3 minutes. He checked, yeah, it does it. And here, this is how it works. Then I said, so why didn't you tell me? His response, you never asked. Mm-hmm. You asked me to fix the chip that is doing that, and I was trying to do that. So this became a kind of a thing for me that I started to think that how can I ask smarter questions that basically I talk about the end result, not about what exactly I think gets me to the end result. I thought the only option was that chip. But if I had asked, no, I want to send mass fax and we were using this, it doesn't work, what can I do? Probably I would have got him to think differently. But then I had this conversation with the technician too. I said there is a difference between technician and consultant. A technician is the one that you ask them and they do the job. Mm-hmm. A consultant is the one that says that, why do you want to do it that way? What do you want to achieve? Are there better ways to do that? So they will start asking questions to see if they can, reach the goal that you want in an easier way. So that's the difference between consultant and technician. So it became a learning process for both of us, that he could act like more of a consultant versus a technician, and I could have asked a smarter question personally and actually encourage him to be more of a consultant. And believe it or not, I used that afterwards for anything that I did. Even, for example, I'm going back to this building the house, that my house that I built, I don't know if you remember, Bo. Even then, I would just phrase my question a little bit differently. I would phrase it that I want something like this to happen. I want in future this to happen. How can I do that? Versus do it this way. Mm-hmm. So by switching the way of asking the question, I position the other party in a different position, which normally people actually, they like it, because by asking a genuine question, you respect their opinion.
Yeah.
And then you get them to, think, differently. And they did actually. Of course, I should say again, I was asking the question from educated people in the field, not just anybody. So when it comes to asking question, basically I would say that is one of the things that, first of all, who do you ask the question from? Then how do you phrase it? So the questions very frequent in daily language when we speak, we don't follow this as much. So the questions are normally a kind of a yes-no question. You don't allow for, the person to express themselves. Mm-hmm. Or it's a very biased question. Just to make an example. For example, say that, my podcast is awesome, isn't it? This is a yes-no question. Of course it is awesome, we know that. But, it's a yes-no question. The proper way is, what do you think of the podcast? And actually, I'm going to go back. Now, if I want to, the tone, again, it can be another thing. What do you think of my podcast? Because when I say my, now I'm becoming personal. If you say you like it or you don't like it, now you like me along with it, or you don't like me along with it. So it becomes a bit more.
Right.
Versus, if I would ask, what do you think of this podcast, Life Workshop? The question can be, and then the tone. If the tone is really genuine, I want to know, I would like to know, what your thoughts are. That's a different thing than, what do you think of this podcast that I'm doing? I kind of insinuate that I want you to like it and to give me a yes answer. A kind of.
Right.
And of course, partly again, it becomes my responsibility as the person who is asking the question. But part is the responsibility of the person who is answering to, because sometimes they come with their own assumptions that as if I'm asking for approval, I'm seeking approval. Mm-hmm. So sometimes is that it's a both way thing, but we can clarify it by, as I said, the tone, the way that we use the words, what do you think of, this? Or for example, sometimes people, they make things actually rather personal. For example, they say, if they know I'm originally from Iran, so in your country, then if somebody says that, very frequently they come back, how did that become my country? I'm going to put it up for sale. If it is mine, I'm going to sell it. So they make it personal. And then they want to tell you something good or bad. Either way, doesn't matter. They want to give you a credit because in Iran is this, or or bad if they want to say something else, and they make it personal. But no, I was born in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
I did carry, and I did carry an Iranian passport, or I am carrying a Canadian passport. So this of course goes back to the identity, but it is again, that's the way that we question, it becomes overlap each other. The way that we ask the question, sometimes the questions, they make it personal, that, or they have a insinuation to them that, I want a yes or no answer or something. But if you leave it just very open, very unbiased, and think, then you will there is more likelihood of you getting a proper answer. And there is more likelihood because, again, it depends now on the other party. That, are they able to give you a proper answer, or they assume that you want a certain answer and they give you that answer. And this happens in daily language very frequently. That, for example, people talk, do you agree? Do you know? Do you agree with me? They just ask for that. Then you have a harder time saying, no, I don't agree with you.
I guess. I mean, but a person, I mean, if they're asking you, do you agree with me or not, right? I mean, I think people do want a truthful answer at the same time, right? You're not just supposed to go along just because they're excited about something and say, yeah, great. You as the listener have to be honest as well, right?
That's correct. It's a two-way thing. And, sometimes we just seek a certain answer, and then the other party might, give in.
Yeah.
And they may not.
Yeah, and I guess when you ask a question like that, you have to understand that you asked the question, so
be ready for the answer.
Be ready for the
That is very true. If you're asking a question, just be prepared to get the answer too.
Like if you don't want a certain answer, well, maybe you shouldn't have asked the question.
Actually, you just said this though, and it was a very good point. Sometimes it happens that more frequently, I would say than not, that we assume if I give the person who's asking me the question my honest response, that they might get offended.
Mm-hmm.
But more frequently, actually, that's not the case.
I hope not, because then otherwise, what's the point?
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. No, but more often, actually, if you are honest and we give the answer properly, I think, they will be just okay with it. It might be a shock, but at the same time, they will have more often more, respect for your feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Than if you just keep agreeing with them just randomly, which unfortunately in the new culture that we have right now, you have to be nice, say nice things, not honest.
Who says nice things?
Be nice. So those kind of things, sometimes it just, I don't know, it has, as far as I'm concerned, it just has gone a bit too far that we have become more dishonest just because we want to be nice. So anyway, I normally say that I don't sacrifice honesty for anything else.
Yeah. At the same time, though, don't you hate it when someone says, "I'm just being honest," but they said something completely rude to you, like that's like, okay, yeah, I get you're being honest, but okay, but you could have said that a little nicer.
That is true. You can say nicer. That's a different thing.
There's a difference between being honest and being an asshole.
That is correct. And sometimes, it doesn't matter. It's just you don't have to go. If I don't have to come and say that, hey, Bo, you look really ugly today.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
if it's not needed, don't say it.
Yeah. Like I have a mirror. I know. Like just
But anyway, so the way that we phrase a question, that it should be very more of an open end, and what do you think of this, not to make it personal, to allow the other party to feel more comfortable to say it with a bias or something. Just the tone should be, and really when we ask, it should be a genuine question. And the genuine question is when you're looking for a genuine answer.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly want to know, anyway. So because I in one of the previous podcasts, I said a lot of time we don't know exactly even the flaws in ourselves. We can self-reflect and we can think about that, but it is from our own view. The only way, I was not the only way, the best way, one of the best ways, I should say, that we can realize who we are if we are making a mistake to ask others. But now when we ask others, we should really, I said, be genuine in our questioning, and hopefully they would be genuine in answering.
Yeah.
Versus thinking about, oh, I'm going to respond in a certain way to make you feel the way that you want to feel.
Yeah, you can't be searching for a specific answer, right? That's never really very good. Like when someone's fishing for something, like when someone's fishing for a compliment or something like that, right? It's never a very good way to go about asking a question.
Actually, I was listening to a few podcasts actually about this and TED Talks that one of the guys said that try to understand others more than try to be understood. Which, of course, depending on the case scenario, but try to understand and then listen with the intent. This is very frequent. It happens in especially depending on the type of the conversation. Sometimes we listen to somebody with the intention to respond.
Yeah.
So before even you start, I want to respond to you in a way. I want to defeat you, beat you in that one. So then I'm going to be listening, but really, am I listening? I want to get you somewhere versus, listening genuinely to see, and then to be genuine and ask more questions. So listening with the intention to respond, that we frequently do that. And that response can be in agreement or disagreement, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Regardless is useless. I mean, it's not the best way of listening. Then, and sometimes what will happen if you have an opinion or idea on a question that you are asking, this is normally said that the difference between a genuine question and the non-genuine one. A genuine question is that when I'm asking a question, that really I try to leave my opinion and ideas away from it. So first of all, who do you ask the question from? Somebody who you trust and they are knowledgeable in the field. So that is one. Then the second thing, when you ask the question, really, you ask seeking a response. And that response may be in agreement with you or not, or something else. Just, and maybe that is why, sometimes when we see that people, they get into arguments often because they have an opinion or an idea. And then because of that, if you say something different, it becomes an argument. And if you agree with me, I like you. And at times we choose our friends just like that. The friends who agree with us versus the friends who challenge us and help us grow. So these behaviors, they have a ripple effect. That, do we value somebody who just very genuinely tells us, what they think? And hopefully, as I said, again, I'm going back. Regardless, it should be somebody who is educated in the field. Somebody who is not
in the field of what, being my friend?
No, educated in the field that you're asking the question.
Okay.
If you're asking a genuine question in a certain field, the person who is responding should be somehow knowledgeable in that field. Am I making sense? For example, if I have a plumbing question, I'm going to come and ask you versus my, welder friend.
Yeah.
But it comes now when it comes to a friendship level, that the conversations we will go. Actually, this is another podcast we're going to do about listening. I will get a little bit more into that one in that podcast, in the next podcast. But when it comes to daily language, of course, sometimes when we are talking about just random things that are not necessary, you don't have to be that educated, or we have some sort of understanding. Let's say, how do you wash the dishes? I don't know. Just something that everybody does it. But then now to agree or not agree, you can just express your opinion.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal. But if you genuinely ask, so why do you wash it that good or not wash it that good? Because again, the purpose of washing dishes is really not to get sick or not to, it can use, for example, the same thing again and not to get sick. That is the very main thing. The second thing, obviously, it doesn't have a smell or something like that.
Okay.
The purpose of washing. Now, if we become too clean about that, then we have gone too far. Am I making sense, or am I going too far into that?
What's happening here?
Nothing. Just we
Okay.
can skip this part.
Okay.
Basically, what I'm trying to say that for the things that are more of a daily language, that we don't need too much of education. Again, if we ask a question without having a specific idea and really or opinion or something, then we can ask. Our question becomes genuine. And normally, this is actually ask a question as if you do not have any opinion or bias towards it.
Right.
And then again, it goes back that who do you ask that question from? Somebody, who has some knowledge in this in the field. But that is probably why when children ask a question, more often actually they have a proper question. I mean, Einstein says that if one asks a question, ask like a child, because normally they are really asking with the intention to learn, versus having an intention that they want to say something. Anyway, so when it comes to the questioning, I know it became a little bit boring. It was not as good as I was hoping. I was hoping to be. But, again, the right way of asking questions is very important. I really encourage that again. That, to ask more questions and, versus having opinions and ideas about them. And those things, they will help you to develop your own perspective. But again, next time, if you want to ask for example, as you become more knowledgeable about the field, then you want to ask the question from somebody who is yet more knowledgeable than you, or at least the same level, that they are adding value, versus somebody who doesn't know and, they just come and randomly say stuff.
Right.
I should say this,
I guess it depends if you're asking someone's opinion or not.
Correct. But that way you should pick that who you're asking your question from. This happened years ago. We were running, a few of us, and then at the end of the run, one of the guys said, Mo, my shoulder has been hurting a little bit. Of course, he knew that I'm a physio. And then before I start saying something, somebody else jumped in and expressed how you should fix the shoulder. Who is not.
That's a little weird.
It was a bit weird. So basically, actually, I was just wondering what to say. Another thing.
Were they even close?
No.
Oh.
Because she had experienced that one way something had happened that helped her shoulder. So as if there is just one problem in the whole world for the shoulder pain, and that's the one solution, and that's it. So she was very eager to express, her. And sometimes we do ask actually a question, and we are eager about saying what our experience is versus, getting other people's experience.
Yeah.
Even now I'm saying that I remember, for example, if you have been somewhere, this was a podcast, that if you have been somewhere but somebody else have been to the same place, instead of sharing your own experience, ask them. And don't assume that they should feel the way that you did. For example, I went to Paris, you went to Paris. So how did you do? Where did you go? How did you like it? Versus jumping in and sharing your own. I mean, it can become a conversation, don't take me wrong. But if you're doing with the intention of learning, then let them express,
I was in Paris, so it was good. I don't care about you being in Paris.
That's good. And conversation is over.
But, yeah.
Even, for example, now another thing is, when it comes to parents and children, again, this was something that I heard somewhere, so I think it's worth to share it. For children, for example, don't ask them the same question that, how was your day? If you really genuinely want to know, then you go into some sort of a detail. So what was the most interesting part today? What did make you feel good? What, did something bother you? Just change the question, but in a very genuine way, because the random question is like, how are you? What a beautiful day. These are very random questions that have random answers to them. You don't have to even think about that.
Yeah, like one-word answers.
Or, yeah, how are you doing? Good. But anyway, so it is very important, to be very genuine, when it comes that if I want to know. But another thing is that sometimes if you don't talk, I won't know. Because you don't speak. Sometimes you ask a question, but again, you don't get the answer, which Anyway, I'll get to this one later on. But there is this guy that said that there is no right answer for a stupid question. That is why maybe we should help others to mature their question before answering it. This happens in my field, for example. Sometimes it happens. Somebody comes and they have a problem. Then they start saying, "So is this muscle, tendon, or bone?" I don't know what to say, to be honest, because it just doesn't work like that sometimes. And then I have to help them to understand, rephrase the question, and then answer it.
Yeah.
That it becomes a question, becomes itself a kind of educated way. You teach them with the proper question. But anyway, again, I said, this was not as exciting as I thought it would be.
So sorry.
Why you sorry? Me sorry.
I was just listening. It's good.
It's not your responsibility, it's my responsibility as well. But anyway, I hope that you find this again helpful, and we will be back with the next episode soon. Thanks. Bye now.